Hey everybody, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. I am back here for days 11 through 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 of 30 Inks 30 days. And I am continuing with my, ink journey through all of the ink bottles that I own. Although I own more than 30, so there are going to be some that are going to be not included in this, but I will. Basically, what I'm trying to do is work through the ink bottles that I have and really evaluate whether or not I still love them just as much as I did when I first bought the bottle. So I will take you through the ink swatch, the ink splatters on my journal with the sandwich bag, and then do some paper testing as well as some Zentangles. Let's get started. Day 11, and we have Dominant Industry Autumn Forest. I had purchased this, I believe, from Galen Leather, and this was one of those inks that I think I had tried actually a couple of times. Well, no, I had one sample of it, and I think I bought the bottle even before I had finished the sample. It was just one of those inks where I'm like, I have to have it. And it's like this really kind of olivey, it's not even an olivey green, but it's like a dusty green. Oh, I'm not set up here. Hold on. Dusty green with beautiful pink shimmer. And I absolutely love it. It's such a great fall color. Well, of course, because autumn is in the name. Absolutely beautiful. And that is currently inked up in my Pelikan M800 in the green black. So that is Dominant Industry Autumn Forest. So I'm taking a pipette and adding a few drops of this into my Sterling Ink A5 Common Planner, and I'm using a sandwich bag. The key thing with these sandwich bags is to make sure that there's a lot of wrinkles in them in order to let the ink get into all of those crevices to get that really nice splatter look. So now back in my Galen Leather A5 notebook, where I will write day 10, the ink and the pen, and then I will do an ink swatch on the Tomoe River paper. That stamp is from Everyday Explorers Co. And then I will do the ink swatch on the 6 different papers. So Regalia, Rhodia, Cosmo, Onion, Yamamoto Bank, and Bank. And actually looking at it after it's dried a bit, the shimmer is actually pretty consistent, although on the Yamamoto Bank and the Bank, the base color of the Autumn Forest looks a little bit more yellow and a little lighter. Then I'm using my ruler to draw out the grid for my Zentangle, and these are inspired by Varnika Carney on Instagram. I've included the link to that account in the description, and I love doing Zentangles for my 30 Inks 30 days because it's a different way of using the pen than just writing with it, and I love the overall effect. This was an absolutely dreamy combo. I love the wetness of the extra fine nib, and it brought out the shimmer in this. So I rated this really well. The ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level a 9. I kind of want to keep writing with this combination because it was just so fun to use. And this is the thing with 30 Inks 30 days. You get a little taster of pen and ink combinations, and then it's time to move on. But I will probably try and ink this up maybe in, I don't know, November. We'll see. It's just such a fun pen and ink combo. So that is day 10. I lied. It's day 11. I got the numbers mixed up. This is day 11, not day 10. The next ink is Ferris Press Aalis, and this was an ink that I bought very spontaneously. I feel like there's a running theme here with spontaneously purchased ink bottles, but I saw this one in my local stationery store and said to myself, have to have it, have to have it. And because it was at my local stationery store, I did not have to purchase or pay for shipping. And the pen that it is in is my new Lucky Star pen. This is Lucky Cosmos. And oops, I forgot to do the line variation, but let's go ahead and do this. So Ferris wheel, press, Rouille. Sorry for the shaking here. So let's make sure that we agitate it, because all that shimmer, do you see all that shimmer that is at the bottom? It's fantastic, this ink. And I'm so glad that I bought it. This is one of those inks where if I could write with it every month, I probably would. Right, Ferris wheel press Aalis. A few drops of Ferris wheel press Aalis in my pipette, then putting a few drops down on my Sterling Ink A5 journal, and then swirling it around with the sandwich bag. I love this method because you can really see the effects of shading and shimmer, and just the way that these swatches turn out is just really cool. So back in my Galen leather A5 notebook, I'm going to write what day it is, as well as the name of the ink and what pen I'm using. Then I'm going to swatch in the stamped area here on the Tomoe River paper, and then I will swatch on the 6 different papers as well. I love doing this because, one, it's just so fun to see the different effects, because sometimes there is a difference and other times there's not, but in here you can actually see that on the Cosmo paper this ink looks a little bit more dull, but on the onion skin the shimmer is just consistent throughout, and then on both Bang papers the base color just looks that much lighter. I love it. And then going to measure out the grid for my Zentangle, and I smudged, which really sucks, but I don't actually let mistakes like that really get me down, because I ended up choosing a Zentangle pattern that mostly covers that little smudge anyway. So really for me the point of doing these Zentangles is, one, to just use the pen and ink combination in a different way, but two, you're gonna have to really get over any mistakes pretty darn quickly with these. This was so fun to use. This Aalis ink is a great flowing ink out of this fine nib, and the shimmer is actually consistent, and there were no hard starts. My only concern was that the pen is just okay for comfort, so I gave the ink a 10 because it's just gorgeous. The flow a 10, and the comfort level of the pen maybe an 8, maybe even a 7. Overall for day 12, gorgeous pen and ink combination. Like, this is a beautiful pen and I cannot get over that. I think the only thing for me is possibly that step between the body and the grip, but also the grip being maybe slightly narrow for what I personally like. But otherwise, really great combination for day 12. Day 13, and we have Diamine Masquerade. This is from the 2023 Inkvent calendar, and one of the things that I absolutely love about this ink is the fact that pretty much everyone who knows me said this is such a you ink, and it's that dusty pink and it's got this beautiful shimmer. So yeah, of course it's a me ink. And of course I have a bottle of it. I'm very thankful to my friend S who sent this to me. Oh my gosh, isn't it so, so pretty? There's a sticker on the other side of the page, that's why it bumps that. So lovely. And I've written with this in a pen already when I had it in a sample, but I'm so excited to have the bottle. And I currently have it in my Franklin Christoph Model 31. So this is Diamine. Oh, I'm so excited for this one. Masquerade. Pretty. Then I'm going ahead and placing a few drops in my Sterling Ink A5 journal, and I'm trying to experiment with whether less is more, because I don't want huge puddles of ink that are taking ages to dry, but I do like these long, I guess, strips of ink that I put down, because they look so, so cool when they're spread out with the sandwich bag. So now I'm going to swatch in my Galen Leather A5 notebook. I'm going to swatch on the Tomoe River paper and then do the swatch on the 6 different papers as well. And it's interesting to me how light the pink looks on the Onion Skin, the Bank, and the Yamamoto Bank, but then on the Tomoe River paper it just looks so much more saturated. And then I realized I've been labeling the last couple of days wrong in here. This was supposed to be day 13, not day 12. And I freaked out a little bit when I saw that the dates were wrong, but whatever. And then I'm going to use my ruler to draw out the grid for my Zentangle. And when I choose Zentangles, I really like to choose the ones or the patterns that will really bring out or showcase the properties of the ink. And some are a lot more intricate and some are really just about coloring in the space, and this one is that, and it's going to really show off the shimmer in this ink. I love this pen and I love this ink, but together probably not the best combination. There were some hard start issues, and there was some burping as well because there was some ink actually stuck in the cap. So I mean, I give the ink a 10, but the flow a 7, and the comfort level of the pen a 9. This was a fun combination, and I really loved creating the Zentangle with this because just seeing all of the shimmer and just the color of that ink in one big Zentangle like this is, which is why I love doing the Zentangles. It's like an ink swatch and a writing sample all in one. But unfortunately, I did have a couple of hard start issues. Otherwise, though, I really liked the two together. So that is day 13. Day 14, and we have Ferris wheel press, Queen, and Castle. There's not a lot left of this ink, so I won't say hoard it, but I unfortunately will not be sending any more samples of this to friends. I feel selfish saying that, but it's such a pretty ink and I don't want to lose any more of it. That sounds really bad that I don't want to share, but it's so pretty, and I think that I kind of want to hoard or at least use what's left in my collection because it's such a pretty mustardy yellow. Reminds me a little bit of Pilot of Roshizuku Inaho, but then it's got a beautiful rose gold shimmer. That line is a little bit off. Oops, but it's such a tiny, cute little bottle. And this was sent to me by a viewer, so I'm so thankful that they did send that to me. And then this is currently inked in my Zodiac Penco Water Lily Koi. So we have, ooh, why does that not look the same? Because it's not in that pen. It is in my TWSBI Eco. Oh my gosh. Okay, I realized right now why I put it in the TWSBI Eco, because you can see it's swirling around in there. Oops. So let's cross that out. So we have Ferris wheel, press, Queen, and Castle. Can't believe I made that mistake. Whoops. Back in my Sterling Ink A5 Common Planner to go ahead and add a few drops of Ferris wheel press, Queen, and Castle, and swirl it around with this sandwich bag. It's funny how it looks more mustard in the Sterling Ink A5 Common Planner, but I think once it dries and the shimmer shows through, it'll be stunning. So here we are, day 14, and swatching in my Galen Leather A5 notebook. I love being able to compare this particular ink to the 6 different papers, because once it dries, you can really see how different it looks on the Regalia paper. It looks a little bit more dull than it does on the other papers, and then it even looks more green on the Cosmo paper. And then making sure I'm writing the correct day, day 14, for Ferris wheel press, Queen, and Castle, and this is in my TWSBI Eco Cream Rose Gold with a fine nib. And then drawing out the grid for my Zentangle. I try really hard to get this straight, but it's not always possible. And then doing the Zentangle. I don't know if it's harder to do straight lines or curved lines, but doing repetitive lines and trying to get them all the same is very difficult. So I have to be okay with things not being perfect. And I think that's also why I like the exercise of Zentangles. It can always be risky and a little tricky putting shimmer in a TWSBI Eco, but this worked really well. Although I would like a wetter flow, but at least there weren't any hard starts. So I gave the ink a 10 because, I mean, come on, it's gorgeous. The flow an 8 because I do like it a little bit wetter, and then the comfort level of the Eco an 8. I thought the combo of these two together was perfect, like the cream to go with the base color, and then you have the rose gold shimmer. Like, how could you not have put these two together? But I also love how it looks in the barrel of the Eco. You could see the shimmers there, really fun. I think I'm gonna write this one dry and just keep using it because I do not want to waste any bit of that ink. So that is day 14. Day 15. Oh my gosh. Day 15, we have Ferris wheel press Cabernet on the lake. I had this in a charger set size, so one of those 5 ml glass bottles, and then someone on Simona's Discord was wanting to give hers away, and I immediately snapped it up because I love the kind of red pinky color of this ink, but I also love the shimmer in it, and of the sample that I used, it performed really well in the pen that I had. So of course I wanted a bottle, because why not? Like, look at how beautifully deep that color is, and then once it dries, the shimmer is going to be lovely. So this is what's inked up in my Zodiac Penco Water Lily Koi. I made the mistake of almost mixing up day 15 and day 14. So Ferris wheel press Cabernet on the lake. So pretty. It's always amazing to me how different these ink splatters look, just based on, well, really, it's so random the way that these ink splatters are going to look depending on how much ink you put on the page, whether it's a shading ink or a sheening ink or a shimmer ink, and how you move the sandwich bag around. It's just so random. I love it. Day 15, and we have Ferris wheel press Cabernet on the lake, and dedicating half a page in my Galen Leather A5 notebook. I like being able to dedicate half a page to each of these inks where I can swatch them on the different papers and see the different effects that they have on the different papers. If you look, it looks more, I don't know, it looks more like a saturated pink on the Regalia, Rhodia, and the Cosmo. And the Cosmo even looks a little bit more purple. And then on the onion skin, it looks pretty similar, but then you've got the bank and the Yamamoto bank, and it looks more like, it looks like a lighter pink on those ones. Then I'm going to draw out the grid for my Zentangle and then start with drawing the pattern. I really like this one just because I wanted to find a Zentangle that shows off the shimmer properties of this ink, and I think I found it with this one. I am so glad I have a full bottle of this ink. I mean, it's not a color I normally go for because I don't have a lot of pinks, I don't have a lot of reds, but the shimmer in this ink makes it. I loved writing with this combination. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of my Zodiac Penco Virgo a 9. It was so fun to write with and to do the Zentangle with because the Zentangle really brings out the shimmer properties, but also the shading. When you go over the same spot over and over again, it really brings out the characteristics of the ink. I love that. So that is day 15 with Ferris wheel press Cabernet on the lake. Day 16, and we have Herbin de Thé, and I count this as a bottle. I mean, it is 10 mils. It could technically be a sample, but I wanted to count it among my bottled inks. So I'm just going to clean off my Speedball bee nib here. And this was one of those brown inks that I had heard of from many YouTubers, but never actually tried this brown. And I can't remember where I got it now, but I thought if I'm in my brown era, I have to have Lis de Thé. And I am not at all disappointed by it. It's such a pretty brown, but also I've got it inked up. Let me just close the bottle here. I have it inked up in my Pelikan M800 in the brown black, and this has a cursive smooth italic. It used to be a fine nib, but it's been ground down to an extra fine, and I love writing with it because it actually looks like a brown ink when you write with it, and that is what matters to me. So that is day 16, Herbin Lis de Thé. If you have never tried swatching with a sandwich bag before, I highly recommend it. It's one of those methods where it's just fun having a sandwich bag. Sorry for the sound if that's not for you. And then just seeing what happens with the pattern in the bag. And you think that it's going to be something that you can control, and sometimes you can, and sometimes you're just like, well, let's see what happens and see where it goes. And it really shows off the properties of the ink. I really love doing it. And then I just wipe off or wash the bag after every use. So day 16, we have Herbin Lis de Thé, and I love brown inks, and this is a brown ink that I've known about for a long time but never actually tried it. And I love how it looks on the Tomoe River paper, but it looks so dark in that swatch. But then when you compare it to the other papers, look at how much lighter it looks on the onion paper versus the Regalia, Rhodia, and Cosmo. It looks actually dull on the Cosmo paper, but then it looks like more of a yellowy brown on the onion, Yamamoto Bank, and Bank paper. Then I'll draw out the grid for my Zentangle, and I accidentally, 1, smear the paper sample, and 2, I think I actually nudged the phone or the camera with my head, so apologies for that. Then drawing out the Zentangle. I don't know how I feel about this particular pattern, but these are all still fun, and I think once I'm done the whole pattern and see it all in completion, I think it'll look amazing. This is strange because I love brown, I love this pen, but could it actually be too wet? A Pelikan nib is normally wetter, but this is almost too much. It makes my extra fine feel like a broad. So I gave the ink an 8 because I really like the brown, but I gave the flow a 7 because I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is too wet for me. And then the comfort level of the M800, a 10. I can't believe I'm saying that the pen and ink combination is too wet, but it is for me because this Pelikan has an extra fine cursive smooth italic, and I really wanted that line variation, but because the ink was too wet, you didn't really get that. It just felt like a broad, so it wasn't the greatest pairing for me for day 16. Day 17, we have my newest Esterbrook. This is the Esterbrook Model J in the lilac, and I bought this from Atlas Stationers. They had it on last chance, and I had it sent to me at the San Francisco Pen Show because I just, how gorgeous is this? And it was such a great deal. And I have it inked with Herbin Poussiere de Lune. I do count that teeny tiny bottle as a bottle in my collection, and I know there's some other people who don't count a certain number of mils under like 15 or 20 or something as a bottle, but I do, and oh, it's one of those purples that I just absolutely love. And I'm gonna rinse that here. It's one of those purples that I've had in my collection for quite a while. Oh, hold on, waiting for the ink to go through. So day 17. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Because I've been away for a few days and I forget what I need to do for these. So there's like barely any of this left. And like reaching in is very difficult. Hold on. I've emptied the rest into an ink miser and it's now officially empty. So I'm actually glad that I can do that and finish that. And then I'll still have enough to be able to do the rest of this for 30 inks, 30 days. And I think that's why I love doing 30 inks, 30 days, especially with inks that I haven't been able to use as much because they're just so pretty. So this is Herbin, Poussiere de Lune. And I finished the bottle. So just taking a few drops of Poussiere de Lune around here. And I don't want to waste whatever's left in here because that's all I have of this ink. So then taking my sandwich baggie, and I feel like I actually put a lot on here. And my inspiration for these sandwich bag swatches is actually Clarissa of the Snowy Studio. So this was not my idea. She was the one who inspired me to do the sandwich baggie swatches, and hers just looks so amazing. So amazing. Oh, beautiful. So here I am in my Galen leather notebook where I'm going to do a quick swatch, and this is a stamp from Everyday Explorers Co. And then I'm going to swatch on the 6 different papers. I love seeing the swatches on the 6 different papers. I have had a comment where somebody felt overwhelmed seeing the same color 6 different times, but there is a purpose to why I do these 6 different papers, because each paper is going to react slightly differently to the ink, but also it's the writing experience. Some people prefer other papers than others, and that's absolutely okay. And then I will write day 17 and the name of the ink and the pen. And then I'll go ahead and measure out the grid for the Zentangle. These are all inspired by Varney Kakarni on Instagram, and I will include the link to the Instagram account in the description below. But I would like to eventually learn how to make this or make one of my own. And I love doing Zentangles because they just allow you to use the pen in a different way. And while I do miss transcribing, Zentangles are just really, really fun to look back through once they're done. I have to say I'm a little sad that I have no more of this ink left because it is a beautiful purple and it also flows well. This pen, this Model J, is actually really comfortable to write with. So overall, I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the pen a 10. This was a really fun Zentangle to do. I think the different areas where you have the pen going over the same spot over and over really bring out the purple, and that's why I love the Zentangles, because when you're doing a pattern, I feel like the shading properties and the shimmer properties and all that really come out, especially in the areas that you're repeating the same stroke over. So that is day 17 with Herbin Poussiere de Lune, the last of this ink that I have. Day 18, and we have Herbin Rouille d'encre, and this was one of the first inks in my collection and my introduction to dusty pinks, and it is currently inked in my Just Turnings. This is the BYOB, or Brighten Your Own pen, and it has the ability to take a Sailor Pro Gear grip section and nib on here. So I'm gonna now do the swatch on this grid. I love seeing all the swatches in one place like this because the grid is just so fun to look at once it's all done, and to see all of the different swatches on one paper. It's very satisfying. And I think for me, it's like a little art project on its own. I think for me, that's what also motivates me to do this, because if I can see all of the inks finished, or all of the inks on one page like this, it just motivates me to keep going with the 30 inks, 30 days, because I know that it's gonna look so cool once it's done. So this is Rouille d'encre for day 18. Doing the quick ink swatching in my Sterling Ink A5 Common Planner. So I'm just putting a few drops using a pipette around the page, and then using the sandwich bag to create really cool swirls or swatches. Now that came out a little bit Midwestern there. Swatches on the page. And I really love this method because it's so random. No two pages look exactly the same. And I know some people think that it just looks monochrome, and for 30 inks, 30 days, it's fine for me, but you can certainly combine different colors using the same sandwich bag method, and it produces such cool results. Now back in my A5 Galen leather notebook, and this has 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. I'm going to do an ink swatch within the stamp here, and then compare it to the 6 different papers. So Regalia, Rhodia, Cosmo, Onion, Bank, and Yamamoto Bank. And what I love about these paper comparisons, it's not just about the color of the ink, but also the way that the ink spreads or how it shades in each paper. And I feel like on the Cosmo, it's very flat, and then there's a little bit more shading on the Bank and the Yamamoto Bank, but really I like it best on Tomoe River paper. That's just how I feel. And then I will go ahead and start lining out the grid for my Zentangle. This is one of those where I feel like this type of nib, I feel like the Sailor medium nib is a little dry, and maybe the ink is a little dry too. So I wanted to see the best way to take advantage of a, I guess, finer nib experience because the ink is so dry. And that's how I choose my Zentangles as well, is if it's a drier or a finer nib, maybe the finer lines with the finer designs work better than some of the bigger ones. I'm gonna say it, this was my least favorite combo. While I absolutely love the ink, I was not a fan of the pen and the nib. I'm considering selling the Sailor Pro gear as well as this Just Turnings Brighten Your Own, it's BYOP, but it's BYOP Brighten Your Own pen combination. I'm really considering it because it's not a pen that I reach for, but I gave the ink a 10, the flow an 8, because I feel like this could have been better, and then the comfort level an 8. While I love how the Zentangle looks, for me it was actually a little bit of a pain to do. I think in the end I'm not really a fan of that Sailor feedback, and this is a medium nib, so it should feel smoother, but it just wasn't for me, and I don't know if that is for me. So I really am considering selling this. So this is the Just Turnings body and cap, and selling it along with the Sailor Pro Gear, the black and gold, to go along with it. So we'll see. I may post this as for sale, or if you'd like, email me, because I will probably be selling that. But that's day 18. I love the ink. We'll probably sell the pen. Day 19, and we have Herbin Vert de Gris, and I have it inked in another Just Turnings pen. This is the deluxe model in the Aussie Abalone, and I asked for it to have the transparent sparkly finials, and I actually have this with a nib that I have not used before. This is a Cypress 14K gold nib, and this is in a fine, I believe, so I'm excited to try that out. So let's do a swatch of Vert de Gris, and I really like this ink because it's green gray, but also kind of like that smoky blue, which I really enjoy. Oh, so pretty. Maybe not an exact match for the pen, but I'm completely fine with that. A lot of these pen ink pairings aren't necessarily an exact match, but it's the pen that I wanted to use for the particular ink. Oh, so pretty. so, so pretty. So this is day 19. Oh, wow. With Herbin, Vert de Gris. So taking a few drops in a pipette like this in my Sterling Ink A5 Common Planner. Oh, here comes Lucy. And then swirling it around with the sandwich bag. Again, key thing with this bag is it needs to have a lot of little like wrinkles in the bag in order for it to have the shape like that. And yeah, don't mind the bandage on my arm there. I had physiotherapy yesterday for tennis elbow, which I find extremely strange because one, I don't play tennis, and two, I'm right-handed, but the tennis elbow is on my left arm. Go figure. All right, so that's my swatching with the sandwich bag. So here I am back in my Galen leather notebook. I will write day 19 with Herbin Vert de Gris in my Just Turnings Aussie Abalone with this 14 karat Cypress fine nib, and then I will do the swatch in the ink swatch stamp and then on the 6 different papers. And what I love about this is that I love on that the bank and the Yamamoto bank, it looks like a lighter blue, and then there's hints of gold when it dries in the shaded area. And then on the onion, it kind of looks a little, I don't know, it didn't, I say, process properly, but you actually see the shading in all 6 of these papers, which is really lovely. Then I'll draw out the grid for my Zentangle, and then I chose one which I wasn't sure if I would really like doing this one because I'm not great with curved lines and making them perfect, but I think that's why I like the Zentangles. You have to let go of perfection, and in the end, you're looking at the overall big picture of the Zentangle versus the tiny details in it. And overall, it just looks absolutely so cool. What a great combination this was. I need to try this Cypress 14 karat gold nib for longer, but so far it's got great flow and it's smooth. The ink is also amazing with its shading. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the pen a 9. Like, just how cool does that Zentangle look? And I think this is why I like doing these, because it really shows off shading properly in a way that a writing sample doesn't always do that. And I think for me, the repetitiveness of a Zentangle isn't as boring to me as transcribing, and I don't know if that makes sense, but I really love doing Zentangles with the pen and ink combinations because I feel like it just shows off more than a writing sample does. So that is day 19. Day 20, and we have Pilot Iroshizuku Chiku Rin, and this was one of the first bottles of ink that I ever purchased. And this was one that I purchased actually from my local stationery store when my husband got me a gift card when I was getting into the hobby, but this was also when I was like, I'm very picky now about the types of gifts that I will get when it comes to anything fountain pen related. But I love this ink. I use this for a lot of fountain pen ink paintings because it's such a beautiful spring color. And while I use it for a lot of paintings, I haven't written with it as much. So that's why I wanted to include it in 30 Inks 30 days. So this is day 20. And I'm using my Esterbrook Esty in Rainforest. And this has an extra, just a fine, it's a fine cursive smooth italic on here. So this is Pilot Iroshizuku. Oh, so lovely to write with already. This is Chiku, Rin. And now here in my Sterling Ink A5 Common Planner, I'm going to add a little bit more to that one, adding, I guess, strips or drops of ink with my pipette. And these pipettes I can get on Amazon. then wrinkling my sandwich bag so that I can get as many different, I guess, ribbons or tendrils of the ink to get a little bit more interest there. Just trying to spread the ink out, but also in this way, the different lines and I guess wrinkles within the bag allow for the variation in the way it's going to shade as well. It's going to be really cool. I love dedicating half a page to each of these pen and ink combinations because, especially during 30 inks, 30 days, you don't get as much time to get to know a pen if you're inking up 30 pens versus if you only have like anywhere from 5 to 10 inked. So I'm writing out the day as well as the ink and the name of the pen, and then I'm going to swatch the ink on the Tomoe River paper and then on the 6 different papers. And it's really interesting to see what happens when they all dry, because on the onion skin paper it's a really warm green. It looks a little bit more yellow, and then even on the bank paper it looks a little lighter as well and a little more yellowy green. Whereas on the Regalia and the Cosmo paper, they almost look like they're leaning towards the teal. So it's really interesting in this case to see the differences in the papers. And then drawing out the grid for my Zentangle. It's really interesting trying to do this with the fine cursive smooth italic nib. It adds a little bit more of an interest in the Zentangle because you do have that line variation in the nib. But this one is a fun one. I'm trying to be, well, I mean, this is sped up, but I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional and slower with how I'm doing my lines, but it's still not perfect, and that's okay. This was a perfect match. I mean, the color of the ink matched perfectly with the pen, and it is so pretty, but I can't believe I'm saying this again, maybe too wet. I wanted more line variation, and the wetness of the ink kind of prevented me from seeing the line variation in my fine cursive smooth italic. So I need to put it in a needlepoint maybe. I gave the ink a 10 because, I mean, it's gorgeous. The flow an 8 because it was just a tad too wet, and the comfort level of my SD a 10. Look at how cool that Zentangle looks. I feel like you can see a little bit of the line variation in here, but that was because I was purposely or intentionally making sure that the horizontal lines were horizontal, and then the, you know what I mean. But in writing, because I think my writing is small, having a wetter ink makes it hard to see the line variation. So maybe putting this in a finer nib, like an extra finer needlepoint, would make this the perfect combination for me. So that is day 20 with Pilot Iroshizuku Chiku Rin. So that's all 20 days done so far, and it's looking pretty cool, I have to say. But what I am liking about going through all of my ink bottles is really discovering that, you know what, I did buy these bottles for a reason, and some of them I still absolutely love, and it's kind of helping reignite that passion again, shopping my stash basically. So just a quick flip through now. We have day 11, can't believe I labeled that day 10, day 11, day 12, day 13 and 14, days 15 and 16, and I mean, just look at the differences in the papers as well. Ooh, 17 and 18, and lastly 19 and 20. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching and for joining me in my 30 Inks 30 Days series. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and have yourselves a great day.